all remember, journey is to recognize and know the real self. So when I know the real self, then I'm the real self. That is one biggest difference between when I know the computer, then I'm not the computer. That is what the subjective reality is. We have to contemplate and reflect. When I know the real self, I am the real self. But when I know the monitor, I'm not the monitor. When I know Stephen, then I'm not the Stephen. Subjective and the objective reality. So we have taken up one Shanti mantra. Om Purnamadaha Purnamidam Purnat Purnamaduchyate Purnasya Purnamadai Purnameva Vashishyate. So the entire summary of this journey on Saturday, it lies in this mantra. So what it means, it simply means that is whole, means undivided. And what is whole actually is not seen. It cannot be an object of the mind. Knowledge of an object. Do you remember? Knowledge of an object of knowledge. So, this mantra simply means that is whole because everything manifests through that whole. So, this is also whole. Everything is whole. From the same verse, perhaps the holiness has come. From the whole becomes manifest. When the whole is taken from the whole remains. Om Shanti, Shanti, Shanti. Now, remember and contemplate and reflect daily an acronym of whole. Just think, WHOLE. That is what the mantra is. So wholeness in all existence, wholeness is there. Wholeness is there in the water. We have millions of waves. In a clay pot, the clay is the whole. Clay pot is not. But it appears the clay pot is not, but the clay pot is made up of the clay. Same thing, we all human beings. So W means the wholeness in all existence. H means the harmony between the manifest and the unmanifest. When I recognize that this body, mind, intellect, and ego also manifesting from the whole, so I have to establish harmony between the manifest and the unmanifest. How? By knowledge. Is there a harmony between water and waves? Yes. We know waves dependent on the water, but water is independent. But if you go and try to find out the waves in the water, it is not there. So H means the harmony. O means the oneness of the reality. There is only one existence in the entire universe. We see it manifold. The moment you see manifold, then there is a problem comes from the mind. So W means the wholeness in all existence. H means the harmony between the wave and the water, harmony between this individuality and the real self. O means the oneness in the reality. I have to find out how the oneness is there. You see, the science works with the path of reductionism. What is reductionism? We start breaking up into the parts. Matter, then molecule, then atom, then electron, proton, and neutron. You see, we are reducing. We want to know. So that path of reductionism is also the method of finding the cause. But here we are finding the ultimate cause in a different way. So WHO, WH, harmony, O means the oneness in reality, L means the limitless nature of the absolute. I have to recognize the limitless nature of the absolute everywhere, all the time. What it means, I have already found the real self. And then comes the E, the equilibrium maintained in the creation. So I will continue to explain and elaborate on the Shanti mantra. That is the message the Master has given us, the whole. If you look at the 10 verses, first verse, it says that you have to honor the knowledge, respect the knowledge, importance of the guidance, importance of the listening and the learning, the first two verses. Huh? The guru's role in removing the delusion. We are only concerned about how to get rid of this ignorance. So there undergoes a transformation in our mind, and transformation means the ignorance is gone. Second verse indicates the purification of the mind. Not many people get interested in the purification of the mind, but make it sure without the purification of the mind, nothing is possible. Nothing is, that awakening is not possible. So now come to the third verse. Perhaps you all are deeply interested. What is that? The waking state. Waking state, the dream state, and the sleep state. So if I take the ninth verse, the master says, this waking state, dream state, and sleep state continues days after days, weeks after weeks, months after months, years after years. But there is one consciousness which does not change, which is permanent. So we are searching that consciousness which is present in the sleep state, waking state, and the dream state. But at the same time, you see the surprise element that the waking state does not know the sleep state. The sleep state does not know the dream and the waking state. Can you say that I am minus sleep state? You exist there. So what exists? It is that existence is consciousness, and that consciousness we have understood is the absolute existence, consciousness, and the bliss. Bliss means the permanent happiness. The author, the master, begins, it says that let us explore the nature of the consciousness in the first 10 verses. We are conscious, so hence there is a consciousness. Are you listening? Yes, I'm listening. So how you are listening? Behind? Yes, I'm listening through the ears and mind is processing that information. Okay, so ears plus mind minus consciousness, then you are not listening and learning. So the consciousness is always there. So we want to know the nature of this consciousness. We are exploring, we want to know, we want to discover that. But at the same time, like a geometrical theorem, we have to prove it. What we have to prove, that consciousness is the real self, that consciousness is the absolute existence, consciousness, and bliss. So you see the two elements. So we introduce the diversity of the sense perception in the waking state. Many objects, variety of objects, variety of experiences. But behind that, there is only one consciousness. And that I explained to you that if you contemplate and reflect, knowledge of a mouse or the mouse of knowledge, mouse of knowledge, knowledge of the hand, light is falling here. But if I drop the hand, light is still present. So my mind is so much habituated to have the knowledge of an object, objective reality, it misses the subjective reality. And when I miss the subjective reality, then I break up into parts, I enter into the science. Science breaks up into the parts, I told you, A's of reductionism. But here we want to know the whole, the ultimate cause. And geometrical theorem, consciousness is the ultimate reality. We have to just prove it. How to prove it? By removing the different layers of the ignorance. So in the waking state, what we understood, the variety of objects, variety of experiences, and in time and the space, it exists for a longer period. Oh, I'm very happy I bought a home. What will happen to it? Dilapidates or it breaks up maybe after 100 or 200 years. But ultimately, it is constantly changing. That we have to recognize. The same thing with the body, same thing with the mind, same thing with our ego. So, variety of objects, variety of experiences. Then our master compares it with the dreaming state. Dream state, same thing. Variety of objects in the dream, variety of experiences in the dream. One thing, can you notice? In the dream state, I see also myself, and I see the objects, and I see the experiences. Did you get it? Here I am chasing this guy, or the lion is chasing me in the dream state. Same thing also happens in the waking state. When I say I am listening, I am body and the mind. I am continuously living into that ignorance. We have to recognize that it is the body mind complex. It is the object of knowledge. It is not the knowledge of an object. So, in the dream state, also the same thing. But what happens in a dream state? Only one difference, that because in the waking state I am the body and the mind, so I feel the body continues to exist in a time. So I have variety of objects and experiences stays for a longer time. In dream state, in 1 minute, I see the entire year of events. Only difference in the time. Do you see? Otherwise, the same objects and same objects, same experiences. Huh? Whether we fight or we love, in love to our honey in a waking state, sometimes we see the same in the dreaming state. But with reference to the time, at last, only the difference of the time. Then we come to the deep sleep. Deep sleep, why we use the word deep sleep? Because it is not the dream, where the body and the mind is not there. So then what is the object? Absence of object. For the mind, absence of object is also an object. I'm not trying to be philosophical, very clear. Simple example our masters give. You enter into a dark room and I send you to the dark room and I ask you, find out what are the objects present in the dark room. So there is total dark. Sense organ cannot perceive anything. You come back and you say, yes, there is nothing. There is total darkness. I ask you, who is reporting that there is nothing? You. And that nothing is an absence of an object in the that very nothingness appears like an emptiness of the mind, isn't it? So that is why Patanjali says, empty the mind of its content. Why? To enter into the meditation. Why? To experience that peace and the joy. So, whoa. So it means if I empty the objects in the mind and mind seems to be empty, I can experience the peace and happiness. Yes, sleep state. I'm comparing it with the sleep state. Look at it, sleep. The exploration of the consciousness in the deep sleep continues. So I experience the deep sleep when, not in the deep sleep. When I wake up, I have a memory. I can only have a memory if there is an object, and that object is an absence of object. What do you see in the deep? No, I see nothing. That is how the mind learns and understands. So one thing is clear, that there is a continuity of the consciousness in all the three states: sleep, waking, and dreams. Am I aware of that consciousness which is present in all the three states? That we say it is the fourth state. I'm going ahead of this, Master, to give you some taste of it, and then we will follow what the Master is. Oh, that is called the fourth state. Yes. Now just think that fourth state is independent of waking, dream, and the sleep state. That is independent. But all the three states depend on the consciousness. Consciousness is not there, so it becomes difficult for a person to tell whether you are in deep sleep or consciousness makes a difference. So I have to recognize that continuity of the consciousness. How? I simply look at the variety of objects and variety of experiences. Then I move to the knowledge of an object or object of knowledge. So when I look at the object of knowledge or experience of knowledge, my mind starts exploring the subjective reality. It can only happen when the mind is pure. When the mind is pure, my friends. So now teaching is deepening. Teaching is deepening. So in the verse number 8, the master says that what he says, he introduces the concept of the self as the supreme bliss. What is supreme bliss? Permanent happiness. There is what is permanent happiness? The happiness continues, whether you are in a restroom or a bedroom, or you are listening to me, or you are talking to your honey, or we are eating something, doing that. There is a continuity of happiness. So the master, before he wants to know the pure consciousness, one aspect of the real self, he says one thing you should remember, that that consciousness is of the nature of permanent happiness. Why? So we enter into the ninth verse. We have done, I'm just repeating, but repeating in a different way. So in the ninth verse, he says a very important point. I love you. How I, what does it mean? It means I love you for the sake of myself, because I love myself the most. But when I say I love you, my mind says I like you. Because of the liking, I love you. But again, it is for the sake of my real self. I love my real self the most. I love myself the most, or simply, if you say I love you more than myself, you have to be little alert and attentive. He is telling a lie. Don't say anything, but become more alert. Now he is falling into ignorance. He is entering into the area of attachment and delusion. If someone says, you all are seekers, you need not to tell them. You need not to fight with them. Ah, I know. So if one says that I love more than you, not possible. Even in that statement, because I love myself the most, that is why I'm making a statement, I love you more than myself. Because I need to exist before I love you. Do you see that? I need to exist when I'm making a statement. I need to exist. Who is making a statement? I. What statement? I love you more than myself. Oh, so I exist. Can you not exist and still you love more than yourself? Not possible. Not possible at all. So don't tell them that they are telling a lie. It happens because of the ignorance. But be more attentive, be more alert and aware. Okay, I have to work on removing the attachment of this person who says I love more than myself. So in the ninth verse, the master repeats and makes us understand that I love myself the most, and whatever the other statements that I make, I love the smartphone, I love you, I care you, all comes secondary because they are the objects. But the subjective reality is full of love. So, this is another way to understand. It's very important. And now, in the 10th verse, the master says, when I say I love you, okay, so I need to exist. So, that is existence. You see, I need to exist when I say I love you. It has an element of existence, but that existence only doesn't work. I have to be conscious to make that statement. So there is an existence, there is a consciousness, and then I say I love you. So that love is coming from the same real self. That real self is existence, consciousness, and bliss. That is why all the entire literature is filled with this understanding. Even we will come to a conclusion that all gods and goddesses are fundamentally absolute existence, consciousness, and bliss. All gods and goddesses. Like a theorem, again, geometrical theorem. We reach and we understand that. How come it is? So in the first 10 verses, we understand that we are of the nature of existence, consciousness, and bliss, or permanent happiness. Can I remember when I'm in stress? The stress is the outer covering. Anxiety is the outer covering. Reaction is the outer covering. It is veiling that real self. So that is why in the first two verses, the master is setting a foundation. You have to become a seeker. And I covered the 360-degree understanding in detail. What are the traits and the qualities we need to develop in order to enter into that real self and recognize the real self and realize the real self. And then he says, okay, these three states, so you can still remember object of knowledge or knowledge of an object. Think again, contemplate and reflect. Without reflecting, this is not possible. Even now, you are listening. May be aware who is the listener, sense organ in the mind, what is behind the sense organ in the mind, consciousness. Oh, I missed the listening. Who told you that you are missing? You missed. Why? Because you had certain thought. Who is the knower? That your mind was distracted. That knower is the consciousness. That is why you said I was distracted, I did not listen. Whether you say you are listening attentively or you say you are not listening attentively, behind there is a consciousness who is the knower. I understand and I did not understand. It is the same consciousness. Knower is there. It is pointing to the mind. Mind, you were not attentive, that's why you did not understand. And now you are pointing, you have understood. Why I have explained it. So the master is saying that I have to shift my perception from the word of name in the form to existence, consciousness, and bliss. Object of knowledge, knowledge of a hand, knowledge of a hand. So shifting is taking place by contemplation and reflection, object of knowledge, hand of knowledge, not the knowledge of hand. Knowledge of hand is coming from the mind and intellect by recognizing the world of name and the form. It's the same situation is the same. Event is the same. The person is the same. There is a shift. Knowledge of a hand of a knowledge. When the hand of the knowledge, this object drops, and I could see that knowledge is all pervading, that consciousness is all pervading here and now. I need not to control the body, mind complex, and the I need not to control the waves to see that the water is also the wave. In the beginning, it will appear challenging, but it is very simple. It is the simplest thing. Eastern wisdom is the simplest thing to understand and recognize. What is preventing my ignorance, my limiting nature of the mind, my habits, my impulsive nature? I have to shift the perception. I know Stephen, yes. I continue to say I know Stephen, but Stephen of knowledge. Knowledge is taking place here. It is happening in the mind or beyond the mind. It's happening beyond the mind. The oneness is achieved. Oneness is already there. It is there. I am searching what already exists. I'm not creating the real self. The mind will return back again and again. Oh, I have to create the real self. So when you think in terms of creating, you fall into ignorance. No, it is already there. I told you. Knowledge of the hand. Knowledge is already there. But the mind, due to the ignorance, due to its impulsive nature, due to its habit, it is constantly focused on the objective reality. What is objective reality? Variety of objects and variety of experiences. Hold on. Who is the knower of variety of objects and experiences? I have to shift my awareness. That is why we say live in a moment. So that is subjective awareness. Live in a moment. I'm angry, then I continue to focus on anger. Anger is the knowledge of an object. That is not living in a moment. We say it intellectually, it has become a fashion statement. So it will not work that. So that is why I said purifying the mind is important. Purifying the mind is. So did you understand? I believe so. Or even if you did not, you say yes. No problem, because then you can go through it again. So we are examining the state of the consciousness. Now, the next I will go to the 4 verses. Master says, let us understand happiness. Are you happy? No. So in a higher teaching of the Gita, which I told you, there in the very first chapter, our Krishna, the master, says, you are not worthy of suffering. You are suffering, you are crazy. You don't know that you cannot suffer. But here, the approach is different. What is that approach? First statement. I don't believe it that happiness is coming from within. How come? It is my experience. How can you say it is my experience? When I see you, take an example. I see Dennis, I smile. He also smiles, and then I'm happy. You see the understanding? This is how the mind is understanding the happiness. I see happiness in presence of you. In absence, again, I go back to the same state. So the mind has an idea. Mind has an idea that, oh, happy to see you. Whether we are really happy to see you or not, that's a different thing. It's a different. Are you understanding? I see ignorance. I don't see the ignorance in it. Where is that ignorance? No, I see you, then I'm happy to see you. Where is the ignorance? So if the mind dislikes you and you come in front, will I be happy? I still see you. No. So it is the preference of the mind. I like you. It is already ingrained in my memory. And then you come in front, and then I say, I'm happy to see you. I love you. I like you. So we smile and we experience the happiness is coming from outside. Clear? Well, take the same example, happiness in eating pasta, happiness in buying a car, buying a clothes, anything, objective reality. So that liking is causing an ignorance, it is causing an attachment. The first liking, then it causes the attachment. I say I'm happy because of that attachment. Happy to see you. I'm completing the statement. I'm happy to see you because I like you, which has caused the attachment, and that is experienced as happiness. Check it. Check it in anything. Check it in anything. So, because of that likes and dislikes, many desires is waiting to be happy. I go to the restaurant, I eat something, and I'm happy. You see, many desires, so likes and dislikes, attachment and detachment, and there is a part of it. Delusion is constantly working in my mind, constantly. Every day, since we wake up in the morning until we sleep. And we are changing the objects to be happy. We are chasing the objects to be happy because of our likes and dislikes. So, desire for happiness is imposed on that object. I like the mouse. So, desire is already imposed to be happy, is already there in my mind. Now I see the mice, so I'm happy with the mouse. Don't tell your honey, but you have to understand it. But if the couple is attending, then they both rise in wisdom. Many people did it in India. When I said they went home and they told their honey. And then there is a conflict. No, it had to realize, I have to recognize it inside me. Don't start preaching. Yes, keep on teaching. There's a difference between preaching and teaching. Father says, there is a hell and heaven. Come, my son, confess the sins. I don't know the sin. This is preaching. Teaching is exploring each and every step. So, desire for happiness imposed on the object, already it is imposed on the object. I like pasta, or I like something. So, that desire is constantly living in the mind. Motivation is clear in the mind. Then, motivation means to act, to fulfill the desire. What is to fulfill the desire? Some sense of attachment. I love you, honey. I love you so much. I love you more than myself. I've already made it clear. So when I say I love you, it appears as projection in the mind, like the sunlight reflected from the mirror to your room. Think. I'm repeating again. So when I say I love pasta, that projection in my mind already reflected into the pasta to secure happiness. So I sit and eat pasta, I'm happy. Because of the pasta. That is the greater part of the ignorance. Because of the honey. Don't say that, I love my honey so much. But this is the fact. What should I say? This is the truth. We have to face the truth. It appeared as a projection in the mind. It is already there. See from the other angle. From another teaching, Master says, how can you say, for example, I love Ashok? How can I say I love Ashok? First, I should have a knowledge of that Ashok. Or without the knowledge of the Ashok, I can say that I love Ashok. Are you getting it? So we say the three steps, janati, to knowing it. When you know it, then only you have a desire. Whether you have a desire of like and dislike. And that like is projected into the happiness. I love Ashok. Janati. I have a knowledge of an object, then only I can desire. Without knowledge, how can I desire? The mind is habituated to have a desire. And because why do I have a desire? For seeking happiness outside in the world. And then the mind tries to make an effort, and then it continues to live into that delusion and ignorance. And it says, I'm happy eating pasta, I'm happy wearing this kind of a dress, or I'm happy having this car, I'm having a long list. Master is saying happiness is our nature. What a great blow to the mind, to our understanding, to our misunderstanding, to our delusion. I love myself the most. That is why I love you. That is why I am eating pasta. That is why I am enjoying pleasure in the past. Because I love because I love myself. How can you put it? Because eating pasta gives me that happiness, gives me that satisfaction. So pasta is for the sake of me. I am not for the sake of pasta. Are you getting it? What is the ignorance? I am for the sake of you, honey. Huh? I will die when you will die. Really? Or I love more than myself. Teaching, expression is required. Did you get it? So now let us have brief of the 4 verses. I laid the foundation, and then we will understand it one by one. What a remarkable statement he makes in the 11th verse. I'm just translating it, and then we will understand it later. Or you can contemplate. That is why I'm referring. So what the master is saying. When I know the real self, when I know the real self, I know the supreme love. When I know the supreme love, will I have any desire outside? No. Because I recognize that love outside changes in by time, by event, by age. Let me translate as it is. If not known, there is no supreme love. And if known, no desire for the objects will arise. Desire for objects will arise for the physical survival. Are you getting it? Genius. He says you need not to do any practice. Simply understand it. If not known, what is not known? There is no supreme law. If known, no desire for objects. Thus, though known, it remains unknown. It is I see the water is there in the way, but I only see the way. I don't see the water. Such is the supreme bliss of the self. I say I'm very happy. I'm enjoying pasta, but the happiness is coming from inside you. I'm very happy with this car. No, happiness is coming from inside you, not from the car. Car is not an object of happiness. This is what the master is saying. A tremendous understanding is required. Then in the 12th verse, but how it happens, how it happens. How I enter into the ignorance, even if the love is inside or happiness is inside. So he explains by metaphor. You know that in geometrical theorems, we create another suppose. He is following that. He is not talking the God, cult, dogma, religion. That is the beauty. So let me translate and then I will explain it. Like a son's recitation amid a group of students, even when known, the knowledge remains unknown due to the obstruction. So let me take it in a different way. Say, for example, according to him, you have a son who is a, who is doing a chorus song with lot of students. You don't see directly, but you hear that song. 50 students are singing, and one of them is your son is also singing. So now understand this. Like a sun recitation amid a group of students, even when known, I know my son is there, the knowledge remains unknown due to obstruction. What is that obstruction? Oh, 50 students are singing. I hear the sound of 50 students. One of them is my son. What is obstructing? My knowledge, my experience of pleasure in the pasta is obstructing to know I'm of the nature of permanent happiness, which is already present here and now. So it's a little bit challenging, but I told you Eastern wisdom is very simple. Uh, in the beginning, it appears difficult. By constant repetition, reflection, you will see that it is very simple. So think of this example. I covered only two words. I will cover, and then we will understand. Close your eyes. Eyes are closed. Place, position, posture. Is the place responsible for my peace? I'm questioning. I'm using the same example which this master is using. Is the position and the posture is responsible for my peace and calmness? Answer is big no. Nothing outside that changes is responsible for my peace and the joy. That is what the master wants us to understand and know it. Question: why we have closed our eyes? Closed our eyes, symbolic or to all the sense organs, they run after the objects of the senses, and the mind is the first to process that information based on the likes and dislikes, and we may fall into ignorance and delusion, so we have closed our eyes in the beginning. But at later stage, we will be doing, not doing, I would say, or just with eyes open, we can still be into that state. So we can be into that state. Yes. What is that state you are talking about? You are confusing me. Your mind may say, no, I'm not confusing. You see the water and the waves together. You don't destroy the wave to see the water. So once that perception enters, then we need not to close our eyes to meditate. That is where the phrase comes, live in a moment, or living from a moment to moment. Did you? I believe you got it. Simple. What I tried to do my best, what we discuss, we translate that into our conscious experience. That is what I am doing. The steadiness, explore, is it the steadiness of the body, or I have discussed that before also. Is it the steadiness of the body, or it is the steadiness in the body? And if you come to a conclusion that it is the steadiness in the body, so it can be present anywhere and everywhere. But if it is the steadiness of the body, then you will continue to make an effort, then it is a practice. Do you see that steadiness in the body versus the steadiness of the body? Again, I told you that there is a mixture. 50 students are singing. I am aware that my son is also there, but I don't see it clearly. That perception, not clear perception, is delusion. Really? Let's take another example. Wandering mind. What do you mean by wandering mind? Many thoughts, many feelings and emotions and experiences. Come on, are they not objects? Don't I know these thought, feeling, and emotions as objects? Yes, that is very clear to me. So you cannot be the object. You and one thought, you and second thought, you and third thought, you and fourth thought, you and fifth emotion, you and reaction, you and like, and you and dislike, both are separate. Both are separate. Yes, both are separate. What I only need an awareness. What is that awareness? Awareness of the seer and the seen. So let me create a mathematical equation. Seen plus awareness in between. Forget about the plus. Seen, in between there is an awareness and there is a seer. You are free, you experience the emptiness. In the presence of the thought, what you are talking about. Yes, in the presence of all the waves, still see the water. It appears hidden, but it is not. Don't I see the sky remains as it is, even if the millions of the birds are flying? So, as such, I don't have a wandering mind, no, but I have it. I experience it because that seer in the scene. Now, how come I see that? That I have a wandering mind, I'm distracted, I'm agitated. So, wandering mind in between instead of awareness, it is an ignorance. And the seer is there. So, what happens? The seer becomes the seen, the knower becomes the known. And when the knower becomes the known, or other way, you can say the known becomes whatever is the object that becomes the subject. Pasta becomes the subject. Then I get happiness. Just see that clearly. Seeing, perception, then there is another word, vipassana. Another word in Buddhism is mindfulness. They all are synonyms. If I use the word right perception, vipassana, mindfulness, the object becomes the subject. Leads to confusion. 50 students are singing. One of them is my son. Master gives that example, and no doubt will understand that my son is present, but I don't recognize it all the time. Why? It is hard to distinguish my son's voice in a chorus. Our knowledge of the real self is obscured by various abstractions. Are you getting it? J. Krishnamurti, one of the greatest masters who lived until 1960, he followed the entire journey of the Eastern wisdom, and then he was a unique person, realized an awakened, enlightened person. So he directly approached logically. He even did not refer the teachings of the Eastern wisdom as such. So he says we need an extraordinary awareness to see the seer and the seen and the known and the knower. Extraordinary awareness means the ignorance is gone. Extraordinary awareness that even with the 50 students, I recognize. Mm. Shanti, Shanti, Shanti. Om Shanti, Shanti, Shanti. Om Shanti, Shanti, Shanti. Bring your mind on the right hand, your mind on the left hand. Lift your both palms, place it in your eyes, open the eyes inside the palms. Know your experiences, bring the hands down. We'll share our experiences. How are you, Dennis?
Fine, thank you, and thank you for the lesson. A lot of interesting moments and a lot of moments that I'm not sure I understood correctly. But let me ask one question about object becomes the subject. Is Do you put the same meaning in this phrase as in the object of knowledge?
Yeah, it is the same thing.
Okay.
So there's a knowledge of an object, and some characteristics of that object becomes the knowledge in me, and I identify with it. I like pasta, I like cars, so that liking of the car, that projection, that part of the projection is me. Otherwise, there is no liking as such. I love everything.
So when we talk about happiness, is it true to say that happiness is absence of all desires?
Yes, that is what the 11th verse says. If I know the real self is the true happiness, will I have any desire in the world to seek happiness? No. I know it is absolute happiness. I will never.
And hence, it is the desires that obstruct the knowledge of the self.
You're right. Yes. So desire for happiness obstructs. Desire for physical survival, it has nothing to do with it.
But what is the difference between the desire for physical survival and the desire for happiness outside?
First,
What makes them so different that one obstructs and the other one does not?
hunger for happiness or hunger for energy. Do you see that? You are hungry. Really, you are hungry. What exactly you do, you simply go to the kitchen. You don't like even the bread, and you say, oh, let me eat the bread. I'm hungry. But when you are really not hungry, no, I want pasta. I want certain, spices into it. 99% in the modern age, we are not hungry. People die of eating food much more than they die in hunger.
So the difference is in the consequences. When you have continuous
Hold,
thoughts that
before,
origin from the
bef-
desire, then
hold
it
on.
obstructs. Yeah.
Before the consequences, there is an ignorance. We are only talking of ignorance to wisdom. We are not talking. But just for an example, ignorance is there. So if I remove that ignorance in the very beginning, hunger for happiness is not there. So the consequences will also not be there. Yes, yes, contemplate and reflect. Dennis. Then, how are you, Stephen?
Good, sir. Thank you very much. Yes, a lot there. Um, I couldn't help but continue to contemplate and reflect during the lesson of past lessons, past conversations that we've had, and brought up actually just something you said on Thursday, um, about uh, living inside out or outside in. And so I was trying to associate this whole concept with that statement, and then again bringing back up the you teaching us about negation and how to recognize things and then negating it from our thought process and whatnot. And during this, I started separating out and looking at things that either belongs to pure consciousness, which is the peace, love, happiness, truth, wisdom, um, and then everything else. And if I could just continue to process the things that are happening and saying, are those happening from inside me or is it happening from outside of me? and and that's where that separation of seeking the happiness from outside items or the pasta to become happy, that's clearly an outside thing, not an inside. So if I can continue to look at everything that's coming at me and go, nope, that's making me feel a certain way, but that was from the outside, that's not me, it negates it and it leaves me with the real self. And it just started to make, probably makes more sense in my mind than what I'm trying to say right now. But I'm grasping it. And then what also came out of this is that everything belongs to the knowledge. And by looking at it from that perspective, it made me think about um, desire, personal desires. And if I understand that what happens belongs to the knowledge, then it can't invoke ignorance in myself because it doesn't belong to me. It belongs to the knowledge. And I wanted to create some sort of example of that. And I started thinking about mountain climbing. Not sure why. I've never mountain climbed, but I know nothing about mountain climbed, and therefore I'm not attached to it. So it was a clear example of mountain climbing belonging to the knowledge and it not being the knowledge of mountain climbing, um, because I have no attachments to it. And this is what's going on in my mind right now of all these comparisons to this inside outside and whatnot. So thank you.
Yes, yes, you're reflecting and bringing both the sessions together. On Mondays and Thursdays session, that approach is that I have to recognize the impurities in the mind and I have to recognize the purity in the mind. So that is why we have to follow those 40 steps. And there, somebody is a doer. And behind that doer, there is a knower. So in Saturday's session, we are directly talking of the knower and the known. We are not talking of the impurity of the mind. We say it is an abstraction. 50 students, one is my son, everyone is singing. I know that I experience the happiness inside. Just compare it with the sun. But here we are directly talking about moving from ignorance to wisdom. So no practice is required. On Mondays and Thursdays session, inside and outside. So that inside and outside pertaining to the higher mind, to the pure and the impure mind. But on Saturday's session, here is a real self and here is a not self. So it's a direct movement from ignorance to wisdom. That is why I stress that we are not doing any practice. It is a non practice. But there is no problem in linking the two, but keep the objective clear in the mind. 40 steps I will reach to awakening after a time when I complete all the 40 steps. On Saturday's session, why forget about the time and the space that belongs to the mind. You are here and now. You are in peace and happiness here. So that approach is there. So we have many approaches in the Eastern wisdom. So that is why they appear two distinct paths, but the path is the same. So we can learn something from the Mondays and Thursdays session, no doubt. But we keep the clarity. Here we are talking of MI, peace, and happiness. There we are talking of I will be in peace and happiness when I follow these steps. Inside and outside, outside to inside, purify the mind, and then I will reach there. How are you, David and Jerry? Yes, I'm invoking, so I'm very happy that you guys have started talking. Yes.
Thank you. The lesson was a lot of various concepts, but it was not a lot in some respects. So what I found myself doing is just letting go and letting go and letting go and just focusing on my consciousness beneath it all.
Yes.
I'm definitely going to listen to it over and over again and dig into it. I had a very deep, quiet meditation. Thank you.
Beautiful. I will just explore it. We talked about the 11th and the 12th verses. There are two more verses. So I'll lay a strong foundation. I'll explain it again. So no worries. How are you, Jerry?
Sir, I'm good, thank you. I love the lesson. The mind is firmly established in where the love, the light, the truth, the peace is, and that's always inside. And then I just get to share that in everything I do. And so it's limitless and it's everywhere.
Yes, you're right. Mind means the knowledge also. Knowledge comes from the thought. So my thought says that I will have a good lunch when I eat pasta. So hold on, examine that. Examine. So when I examine, so there are two options. Whether the pasta has a property of happiness, obviously then I will be happy with the pasta. And if it does not have a property of happiness, then the happiness is within me. So now I left the desire to be happy because of the pasta is gone. And that mind is empty. And that mind is empty. It is empty mind reflects that real self of the nature of peace and happiness. Look at it. But yes, it looks very simple. It is simple. We will understand it. How are you, Vaibhav?
Thank you, sir. Sir, mind is calm. My understanding is, and how I'm relating to it is like that object is not the source of knowledge. So likewise, I am the source of happiness. So, but mind puts the condition to this happiness. Like this, even if I get something, then also the happiness is coming from inside. If I don't get something, then also the happiness is coming from inside. And if I can check this condition and wait for it, then in some time this condition itself is dropped. It's not there. And then I still be remain happy. So couple of times I can check that and it happens to me that this condition, I forget this condition that I want this and it goes away in some time.
But who will live into that awareness all the time? You have answered part of the question of Dennis, but who will live continuously into that state of extraordinary awareness where whether I get something or I don't get something, I recognize the happiness is within me. I recognize that happiness is within me. Then what the Dennis was saying, how to recognize, then what happens? Hunger for happiness or hunger for survival comes. Then there will be impulsive nature, like the animal. Body is like the animal. Body will seek some food and it will follow the social ethics and normal life will be there. But the happiness will continue to be there inside us. How about you, Terry?
Here is my thought. If the mind is a tool that the real self uses to perceive and distinguish things of particularity, multitudes, things, objects, whatever, then I don't know how quite to say it, but okay, if your son was singing in a choir and you heard it, what if he wasn't there but you thought he was there? The mind thinks he's there, you'll still be happy, even though he's not actually there.
Yeah.
So
Yes.
if the real self, if I love myself the most, if the real self is all pervading and you're the real self and each one of us is the real self, then I am you in that level, and that the rest is a particularity, and that's the delusion.
So that is what happens. We lose that sight of the water in all the waves, and we say there are many waves. We don't see the water. And that clarity is not there. That is what the master says abstraction. So he's trying to make us understand there are 50 people. My son is also there in a choir. They are all singing chorus. I have some reflection. That is what, we have a reflection. After eating pasta, I'm very satisfied. Is the pasta satisfied or I am? So I still have that awareness, but that awareness is mixed with the ignorance. What is that delusion? Oh, pasta gave me the happiness. I came to that restaurant, and that is why I'm happy. Think just one thing. Any thought that comes to your mind, any thought that comes to your mind. Thought means pertaining to the object and pleasure, variety of objects and variety of experiences. If I can instantly become aware that this thought is taking me to the object for seeking pleasure, and I can become aware of it, the moment you are aware of it, you recognize the ignorance, and the ignorance drops. So on Saturday's session, it is all about moving from ignorance to wisdom. Mondays and Thursday, no, we will work hard inside and outside. We have impurities of the mind. We have to do this practice. So that is preparing you to recognize and enter into the higher state on Saturday's session. Are you there, Ashok?
Sir, thank you very much for the lesson. And सर जो ये अष्टावक्र की गीता थी ना, अष्टावक्र ने राजा जनक से कहा था कि यू आर पीस एंड हैप्पीनेस हियर एंड नाउ. आई थिंक संडे सेशन इज फॉर दैट, and Monday and Thursday session is for like Krishna Karma Yoga and all that.
Yes. So he is saying that there is an Ashtavakra, there is another teaching who says peace and happiness here and now. When I discussed that couple of times. Let me take another minute of yours also. So in that is also an extraordinary teacher. I don't want to name the most famous world figures. People on mindfulness or meditation have borrowed the teaching from the Ashtavakra teaching. So I don't want, because we are recording this session, so it's not good to name them. You can find out the top 10 people. Anyhow, what he says, yadi deham pratakratyaha iti vishramya tishtasi. Everyone should pay attention. So that is what he is saying in a different way. Objectified. That consciousness is objectified. When it is objectified, I am the body. This master says, discern, you are not the body. The moment you discern you are not the body, your mind will not go outside for the sake of happiness. Now the master is saying in a different way. This master explains in a different way. So now the master is not going, the mind is not going for happiness outside. So you have clearly distinguished that you have a desire for seeking happiness or peace outside, or you have a desire for physical survival. Physical survival, it will happen by the nature. Nature has programmed that mechanism in us. So what happens? Your mind is empty now. Mind is already settled. No, but mind is settled, then what will happen? The master says, Adhunaiv Sukhi Shanta. He says, here and now you are in peace and happiness. Tell me, are you not? He doesn't say you have to practice. His approach is in another unique way. This approach is another way. That is all. Think of it. We have discussed and did gossip a lot. That is all for today. Thank you.
Thank you, sir.
Namaste.
Namaste, everyone. Thank you, sir.
Thank you.